Call to order the Heritage, the Planning and Heritage Committee. We have declaration of conflict of interest. Approval of agenda.
Am I in a conflict on the Mount Road Traffic Master Plan?
No, you can't be, well, I would think so.
It's just an activities list, yeah.
Conflict is something.
Approval of the agenda. Oh, I got the right one here. Planning and Heritage Committee. Approval of agenda for Monday, January the 4th, 2021. Oh, the agenda. Any questions, any issues with that?
So the only issue, Mr. Chair, is 6A, proposed planning initiative.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we go to that, can I just add one more?
Sure, yeah. Adoption of minutes of Planning and Heritage Committee meeting Thursday, December 10th, 2020. Moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor McCabe. Discussion, no discussion, all those in favor, all those opposed, motion carried. Business arising from the minutes? None? Discussions, proposed planning initiatives for 2021. We'll have a motion, could we have a motion to move into the closed session as per section?
Is the new business done in closed session?
No, the new business, we'll deal with the new business and then we'll go into the closed session.
Okay.
Did we add anything into the business?
The new business is, there's a couple of legal things in the reason we're going to go into in camera. So you'll give me some advice, and then after you give me the advice, it will be public, whatever your advice is.
Could we add the Guild Art somewhere and under new business?
The Guild?
The Guild Art sign, Atlantic.
Well, you can speak about, that can be in the planning project for 2021.
Is that an operational thing rather than a, I don't
No,
know.
it's bylaw.
It's there, number 11, signed bylaw, is that what it is?
Okay, where are we on the agenda here,
I
folks?
didn't know that.
Are we going to discuss the proposed planning initiatives for
Right.
2021 first?
Right, yep,
And we're in the public session for that?
correct, yep.
Okay. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Forbes to bring us through that particular version.
So just a couple of things before we get on to this item, and just since we've just come out of the planning board, I mean, and you know, I keep telling the staff more and more to make sure that applicants are present, and the reason for that, and I've been in that situation before, where I'm asked more and more what the applicant's intentions are, and I know a certain amount, but I'm very uncomfortable making my personal declaration what somebody told me. So the applicant should be telling you that, because if they change their mind, you're going to possibly, you know, would indicate, well, Robert told me that this was what was going to happen. Robert is just a facilitator for somebody else's application. So in my mind, I mean, I highly always recommend that the applicant be present, and then when they make your commitments to council, it's much more of a binding contract what they say to you than they say to us. Right. So I just thought I'd point that out, just something came up at the last meeting.
Hey, Mr. Chair, could I just add, Alex, I appreciate all the work that you and the planning boards do. It's not easy, I know this. And I know Wayne Hamley and his son were out there, but they prefer just to deal with it on the floor.
Sure.
But
it's best though that if they're here.
And that's a good point.
Right.
And you know what? That's why I just said, look, let's just keep it going.
Sure.
Because we'll wait for the public meeting. But
Right.
that's a good point you're making, that if he said it here, and then at the public meeting he says something different, he or she, then.
Or something could have come up this evening and they didn't want to speak.
Right.
Or if they're watching, or after COVID, they're in the room, they can answer the question and staff can't. And it's all about deferral, right? I mean, we're there, they know more about their application than anyone, and they're trying to convince you to move forward. And sometimes it's great when they're here for clarity,
Right.
because then if it gets deferred, then they growl at staff and then indicate, well, why did they defer? They deferred it because you weren't there to answer their questions.
Right, that's
But that doesn't mean you have to speak. But he graciously said, I'll be here if there's any questions. But I always think it's best to have the applicant present. You have lay people here. They're taking the time out of their evening. If they're taking their time and you're taking your time out of your evening, at a minimum, the people who are asking for these things should be here to address you, if you need them or not. Right? So in general.
And just last question, Mr. Chair, on the official plan review, I know there was a letter to the editor this past weekend from Diala that we're not sharing these documents with the public. But if you go to our website, charlottetown.ca, go to Mayor and Council, go to Zoning and Development Bylaws. The official plan's there. The Zoning and Development Bylaws there. Everything is there in terms of how we proceed to public consultation. That's also in the Zoning and Development Bylaw. And I told residents who called me about different issues, look, you want to know what's going on? Call the wheelhouse down there at Planning and Development. Her name is Ellen Canteen.
Yep.
And Ellen is able to step people through the process. So, I think people are just, they think that we give everything to the developers, but everything's right there. You just have to know where to look, and if anyone is if they're having a difficulty, phone Ellen or Robert and they'll just guide you. That's what I've done. I'm sure you've done it too, Mr. Chair. Guide me through where should I find this particular information.
So, Your Worship and Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
this is a good sort of a segue. So for today, the purpose of tonight's meeting is just so that we can have a candid conversation about teaming up 2021, coming out of COVID, all the things that have been going on. But one of the things I had to do today, and Ellen helped me on it, was to find out the final figures for building permit activity in 2020 for the mayor's report. So that number is $180 million. That is by far the biggest development year on record here in the city. We're up $23 more million than we were last year.
And last year was a big year too.
Right, it was a huge year. So, I mean, this isn't kudos to me, but I'm just telling you folks, and Ellen can cover her ears, but I mean, we did well to get through last year with the staff we had. That's 3 times the amount of development activity that we had in 2013. Because I had a meeting with Clifford. Clifford said, why is development slow? Well, it's the economy that drives development, and you can see, and that's 3 times the amount of development since 2013. So we have this unprecedented development, and the reason I bring that out is not to get the little fiddle out, but it also, when we get into the projects that we're dealing with, I think 2021 is going to be an equally strong year for development. We're down a planner, so it's to sort of set some expectations on what we can do. So on the list that I have in front of you tonight, I'm just going to kind of highlight that they're on the list. Where I don't think it's critical that you have to decide what needs. We can, in the next meeting, you folks can take it away, just decide what should be prioritized, what we have the budget for. That official plan is monumental in regard to money. I mean, after I get by Peter Kelly in regard to what kind of money we need for consultants, and then we need the time. The problem with the official plan, I'm going to start there, is it has to do with our ability to communicate with the public. So Mike was around here when we did the last official plan back in 1999. Took years to get to that. That plan has lasted for 20 years. This next plan will last from 10 to 15 years. If I were you folks, you're politicians, I'm here to do what you advise me to do. But the more consultation you can have on doing that official plan and zoning bylaw, the better off it is for you, even if it's contentious, because people like to say, I had my say. I may not have gotten what I wanted, but I had my say, as opposed to, that's the plan that those planners / politicians crafted in the middle of a time when people weren't going out and meeting. So there's ways to move the official plan process further this year, or do it smaller chunks or smaller bits. But to do that comprehensively, even if we had the money, I think I mentioned in the last meeting, even if I had the consultants, what happens when you get consultants, they're like having, you have to hold them by the hand and explain everything to them, and it's still tremendously time consuming to walk them through things. So Julia's question.
Yeah, thank you. No, and that's good. No, and that was my question. Like, I know you did the East Royalty Master Plan a few years ago. Where are we having our most challenges and issues within the city? Is that kind of like more of our waterfront downtown area? Is that something we could identify as a priority? I know, I understand what you're saying, to do the whole plan. It's not like you can just rip it out and do it fast. But is there areas that we need to look at based on our, for me, I haven't been here since 1993. I've been here for 2 years, and I've seen a lot of
like a really well-implemented official plan, and I'm hoping that this next one will be that. I mean, it would be, we use that document every day, and you know, again, that document was created, I wasn't even around, so I just...
Your old buddy was apt.
Right, but when people ask me my opinion, I always, my personal opinion, I tell them it doesn't make any difference what my opinion is. My opinion is the official plan that was adopted in 1999. Until they change it, my opinion will stay the same. But, you know, there are ways, that plan, the official plan, in fact, becomes the corporate plan, because Ramona, in sustainability, she'll have a chapter in that plan. So I haven't even talked to Ramona yet, and again, we're just having a discussion tonight, we're not solidifying things. But if we want to move up, because sustainability wasn't a huge issue in 1999, so if we want to segment out a portion of the official plan to work on in 2021, and then to go out with a much more focused discussion with the public, is because when you go out to the public and you change a whole official plan, it's really hard to go to a public meeting. And you've seen the complexity of just a development application. That's a tiny thing in relation to what's happening in the official plan. So we can decide, we can do another secondary plan, we can review something, we can bring in the sustainability. I can talk to Ramona. If we want to do that, again, we don't have to discuss it tonight. When we go in camera in a minute, we have some immediate things that I need some direction on. So that's going to keep us busy for January.
Alex is going to touch on these topics tonight,
right.
and you go away and do your own prioritization.
Right. So the zoning bylaw, the zoning bylaw enables, and you need the zoning bylaw to drive the policies in the official plan. So what's going to happen is when you come in with a new official, let's say you did the whole brand new official plan, the minute it's done, you have to do a whole new zoning bylaw, right? So that's going to take you from 2 to 3, possibly 4 years to get the 2 of them done. But you have to start somewhere. We're constantly amending that zoning bylaw, making it, fortifying it. Every time we have these legal issues, we find out, David reviews it, and then we get into these discussions, and David will suggest, well, it would be better after this issue is over, or something, we've been to Iraq, you makes these changes to your zoning bylaw. So we're constantly changing it. Short-term rentals bylaw, that is going to be a real hot topic in this town. So that's going to keep us, when we open that up, when you direct staff to go back out to the public on that, that's going to preoccupy yourselves for a couple of months, I would suspect, because we saw how incredibly emotional that was on both sides. I mean, the development community were very emotional about their future and their economic livelihood. The affordable housing people / people that couldn't find a house. So we'll have to deal with that. So I'm just throwing this out here. I don't get to pick, but that's likely going to be high in the priorities for 2021.
But just, Mr. Chair, just on that issue, that is not the only issue of housing. There is the issue of public and social housing. Sure. There's co-op housing. And there's also, I know it's not on the list, but inclusionary zoning that could remedy some of these issues. But I think sometimes there's a big focus, concentration on one area. Well, I think there are other big areas like co-op housing, public and social housing.
And you can add those.
And inclusionary zoning. Yeah. So let's, I think,
and all it entails.
And I think the chair said gave the right comment to CBC, is that we're going to wait, we will wait until there's a moment in time where we can have a public gathering and allow individuals to come up and make their argument for or against. But I think it's let us get more beyond like the vaccination period and see if we can get a larger facility.
Your Worship, until we have permission to congregate in larger groups, there'd be no short-term rentals, because the same rules apply on travel and that sort of thing. Everybody's going to have to get a lot healthier before we get.
A lot of things have changed since we were last into that discussion.
Oh, I know.
Right, and the short-term rentals may have self-resolved. We don't know that.
No, but if you go on Twitter and you go on and you watch some of the tweets that are being put together, assembled, it's the STRs. That's the main issue. It's not the only issue about affordable accessible housing.
Yeah, if we can get our vacancy back to a standard, and that's happening because a lot of people in STRs had to rent them long-term, or they sold them. because they were no longer why they had purchased them. So we'll do the research on that.
They had those, Philip, they had those.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that
And
because.
just to note too, when it comes to STRs is not just about the housing crisis, it's a business that we need to be mindful of. Where do you run
Right.
businesses versus a residential area? So
Right.
it's not just about housing,
Right.
it's about other components of it as well.
Right.
And there are some positives to STRs.
Yes,
STRs
absolutely.
give the city capacity that they otherwise wouldn't have, because the hoteliers are not pushing back on STRs.
No.
The reason is that they've got enough business themselves.
Plus
But-
it adds to the wave of people
Right.
renting.
But you can't, like the hoteliers are not gonna build a new hotel because in January, it's just another big hotel, 5 of them competing against a little bit of business.
And just one last point, Mr. Chair, and I don't know if you saw this, but I remember in 210 and 214 going to door to doors. Substandard housing was a big focus, especially amongst the sisters of St. Martha's
Yeah.
and Notre Dame,
Yeah.
because they saw it and they were dealing with it. Well, that slowly has shifted because STRs are taking those homes and maybe putting them up to a higher grade. But if we replace that substandard housing with public, social, and co-op housing, then we'll balance the inequality among the haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
I understand.
So I have to hire a new planner, hopefully.
What?
I'm not sure when that's going to be.
Job.
They're hard to get.
Put Ellen in there.
Yeah. But we could use 2 Ellens.
3?
Yeah, exactly. But we'll hire a new planner, and that will start to get us caught up. But that new planner takes some months to get onto what our new zoning bylaw is. The Mount Edward Road Traffic Master Plan, that's going to happen soon. So you folks, I suspect, may be out in February, depending on how quick CPCL can get this done. We are likely going to have a public meeting on that, because the development community has been waiting for
Yep.
years to get that resolved. So that, I'm suggesting to you folks direct, but that's going to be a priority to get done sooner than later.
Yep.
The automated building permit system implementation, we did get 3 proposals on that. We've been so busy, it's just a matter of scoring the thing. We're going to attempt to get that scored tomorrow. I don't know how quickly we can get that to council, but I think that one's relatively straightforward. The problem with that is it takes an inordinate amount of time when you move to that new system. It is just not a piece of software. It's you're changing the work processes in the department. Some people have got more capability using online tools. Again, if you're a planner, you have to, and a building inspector, you have to use that tool. So it'll slowly eradicate the old paper system, and some people will love it, and some people are going to resist it. And so there's some time. It'll take months to get that fully up and operational, and the training through whatever the successful vendor is. We also need to, and we'll likely put this out shortly, we need design standards for affordable housing projects outside of the 500 lot area. So when the design review was designed for the downtown, which is really complex in regard to architecture, we all know that. But then what happened is then we put in the new provision, if you have an affordable housing project, which is affordable, and they tend to be outside of the downtown, we put that in, and we do send them off to design review, but we don't have any standards for that. So we need to say to the reviewer, these are the design standards outside of the downtown, which would be more suburban standards. So we need to get that done. We likely have the budget. We can move that along.
So Alex, there must be templates throughout the country, throughout North America that we
The problem with templates is that there are templates, and there are general things that you will get them to look at, but you need to tailor that to the Charlottetown, sensibility. This isn't, you just can't grab that from Halifax or, maybe up, like Fredericton or somewhere else, but you need to have a similar suburban / rich architectural area like Charlottetown to implement those guidelines. And it's what, again, the design reviewer says, okay, I know what they're trying to achieve with these affordable housing projects. These aren't supposed to be, I don't like to use the term Cadillacs, be that cavalier, but the intent is to make it blend into the neighborhood but not make it overly expensive. And we don't have those standards. So we can work on that, and I have the budget for that. The orthophotography that we fly, I think the last time we flew that was 3 years ago. We usually fly it every 2 years. Those are the maps we use every day. Those maps are incredibly powerful. They fly over with cameras, and then they go into the GIS. And so every time we look up a property, we're looking into that GIS. You folks may not appreciate this, but when somebody says, Julie comes in and we say, we don't think that we have a building permit for that shed you have in the backyard, and Julie says, it's been there for years, we just go back into GIS and you can see from the satellite photograph, which was right over the top of your house. Well, Julie, it didn't seem to be there 3 years ago from the last time we flew the city, so it's a tool that that we use. And that's just one of a million reasons we use it. We can help people on their applications much more readily. We got a good card pictures on there. So that'll be in my budget for 2021. I'm gonna have to come to you folks with an operating budget. Don't want to give you a shock when I come forward on some of these things. We do have a GIS master plan that we did get implemented last year, and thank you very much. We need to move the GIS, the whole initiative further along corporately. So we are working with the CAO in regard to which parts of that GIS master plan can we implement in 2021. And again, it's not only for planning, we're a heavy user, so is engineering, so could be the fire department, so could every department. So we're looking at going to council during the budget. I may go in tandem with water and sewer and with public works, and we may ask for something to help implement that, but that's in play. The swimming pool regulations, I've been trying to deal with the Red Cross. I keep calling them, asking for information. They keep telling me yes, 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 they're gonna help you, but I never hear back from them, so.
And what about the former director of health, who was very adamant when she was the director of health, Dr. Heather Morrison, that any outside pool requires fencing?
Yeah.
Did we ever get anything from Dr.
I didn't get any, I felt that in light of what she's dealing with, I thought I would.
Oh, I know.
Right, so, you know, but again, that's still in play. We should come to some kind of a resolution by the spring on that one, so that one's likely high on the list.
You know what I was thinking, Alex, not to interrupt, on that particular episode, I think the issue was the person in case didn't want the fence to be in the way of people around the pool and the view of the harbor. I see all these clear
Yeah,
see-through
right,
things
right,
around
right.
patios and that.
Right.
Wouldn't that suffice
Look,
as a protection?
Right after the infinity pool. The infinity pool makes it look like it's part of the river. Without looking through the glass.
Oh,
That's why they paid $25,000 for the cover.
oh,
So you can be like Jesus Christ and walk in water.
I've had lots of discussion with people that have had these hard-covered things.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the perspective, of course, is that they are, you can drive a car on them, they're not safe, you know, and I said, what if you forget? What if you forget to put your top on when you're
What if you forgot to close the gate?
100%. The other thing I thought with this, you know, we all know we're talking about the property that's brought this to light, but being on waterfront, could that be considered not residential beside you? Is that something you could look at, where on the water, that piece could stay open, and maybe there's fence on the side?
we tend to stick with the.
With their cover.
Yeah. The problem with the research that we've done on it, most kids drown in their own pool. So, and it's got the fence around it. The parents answer the phone, they go to answer the phone, or another kid is fighting with another kid, if they were like when I was a kid with my siblings. The parents are distracted and then the kid falls in the pool. When you open up those covers are open usually until you leave the property, right? The gate is permanent, right? And you want to keep the neighbors out, you want to keep their dogs or somebody straggling onto your property while you're not there. So anyway, we can discuss that one later. We just need to prioritize.
Just to clarify what you were saying, Councilor Kay, you're saying to run fence along the pool but leave the water end open. Is that what you're saying?
It's kind of it's you still have your cover to lock your pool, you got your fence, your waterfront property, there's nobody residential on that side.
No, but the infinity view is that it's the whole surface.
Right, out to the water.
Yeah. But
that's
no fence at all. It's
glass or otherwise.
everything. That's how they sell them. And again, each to his own, but I'd never have a pool. I know we looked at buying Karen Laver's house next to where we were living. And I said, I'm not taking on any pool. That's all we need is find Emma floating upside down or face first.
Best investment I ever put in my house.
What's that?
Like a pool.
On my pool.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know. My kids said it was excellent.
Anyways, thank you, sir.
So the next one is the sign bylaw review. I mean, there's numerous things in play. I mean, but, you know, again, I just caution you that, I mean, you can, it's easier to do, it's easier to review the whole sign bylaw. The sign bylaw is relatively, it's one of the newest portions of the bylaw that's done. I mean, you know, again, at the risk of, you know, just because somebody doesn't like the bylaw is not necessarily a reason to change it. You've got to realize that we've told people repeatedly since 2014 or 15 when we did it, that they couldn't have something. The minute they find out somebody can get something by lobbying, because they've been told for 3 years they couldn't have it, it's better to do that holistically, have all of that discussion, get all that input at that time. But again, as opposed to looking at it like by inquiry,
And I think it's interpretation of those bylaws, because from what I understand, it would be that, you know, art, advertising, different perspective, different lens. When we were talking about bringing that up, I don't know when we can bring that up, but it's, you know, went through a certain board here, it was okay, comes back to this department, it's not okay, because again, it's interpretation of how people read, and so obviously, if we have two different perspectives on our bylaw or our zoning or whatever, that's where we have to either do better or reword
well,
it.
you folks can get a legal opinion. I've talked to Dr. David Hooley, David and I are included these days, but you can get him to look at it. But on the other issue of 70 Grafton Street, 80 Grafton Street, we spent a lot of money for another legal opinion there, which staff knew the answer to before we got the legal opinion. So look, every day in the planning department, somebody wants something that this body has told them they can't have. If I'm just telling you, if they lobby you,
Work with his applicants.
no. But if they lobby you, and you're, look, as I was joking with Peter the other day, I get paid every day, and I'll hopefully continue to get paid. But the reality is that if you this is a small town, and people realize that if the greasy, or what is it, the
Greasy wheel gets
the grease, then you folks are going to be a lot busier, because people will be on the phone and saying, I got it changed, I got it changed. There's a way to change it. I'm here, and it's through public input, right? It's public input. Is you folks are politicians, and I'm there to represent. You folks are representing the public. It's not about what Alex wants. Please never think that Alex has got a strong opinion. I have to administer things. I have to be as candid with you folks as possible, that I can either administer it or I can't administer it the way somebody is.
I agree. For me, it's like I'm kind of in this world now, and I'm understanding reading bylaws and learning as I go, and I'm still confused sometimes as who trumps who. So, and I mean, maybe Alana, she should be in the room, but it's not a matter of voting or discussing it tonight, but there's an example of what one process was followed and understood that it was clear, somehow got redirected back to planning. This is my understanding. Planning goes, no, that's not what that means. But so who trumps who in that situation, right? Is it there, like, or why have these advisory boards and determine that one's art, one's not art? I guess that those things can be confusing.
Yeah, well, look, and if you, at the next meeting, if you so desire, I mean, again, please, like, sometimes I feel like I'm holding the line on your rules and regulations. You can change the rules and regulations, right? But don't misinterpret that Alex is, on this issue.
And that's right, and where do you discuss that? Or
right, but if the next time we meet, if you want me to get David Hooley to give you an opinion to review that, you can. It's expensive. You know, poor Peter is reminding me.
Legal opinions every day.
Right, but you know, I don't know. I seem to get.
But isn't that concerning in itself?
What's
when
that?
we look at how many times we have to bring in a legal opinion, why is it that we can't read something and go, this is what this is?
I was going to suggest that. I this morning I went through the 2.5 pages of what you forwarded me from Karen Campbell.
Yeah.
And I think between Alana and Julie and myself and His Worship, we can sit down and discuss this issue without involving David Hooley.
Sure. Yeah.
Involving what?
David was.
Signs. I think you would
And I think we've looked.
because I have it right in front of me here, and I'm not gonna even go
No,
there,
it's a big
because we're
discussion.
short on time, so.
Yeah.
But it's here, everything is there.
And
It's
your
just a matter of reading
interpretation,
the
my
darn stuff.
interpretation of that one thing written could be a little bit different.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
that's where we, and David Hooley, and I hire lawyers, going to be a little bit different, so.
But I guess maybe at the risk of, I'm just trying to be as candid as I
Yeah.
can. I think you folks are really laboring these days on a number of issues to be the experts in everything. That is not your, respectfully, you need to be as informed as you can. You have every right to grill, to ask. Best thing to do, call me up and ask me. Like if you don't want to have that discussion publicly, you can ask me whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, when
We
I
should
give.
move on though, because I'm in conflict, or I should leave.
Right.
Okay.
My head's
Yeah,
full.
we'll talk about it.
No,
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
but on these items though, like council is, it was never intended for any council. In the city of Toronto, do you think when they're dealing with a 100-story building downtown, that the council's debating, they don't debate anything. It comes up through a committee,
Yeah.
the committee endorses it, and then the council just goes check, right?
But we're not Toronto.
No, but it's just a matter of, in general, the reality is, you folks, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know the other committees, but, you don't have to be accountants. I mean, you need to take direction from the accountants, regard to what.
But you read what the accountants wrote, or you read what the
Sure,
lawyers wrote.
sure.
And that's what I have, is what the bylaws are approved by the lawyers, so.
Right.
I read the things and say, and I'm not far from perfect.
Right.
I read the things and say, how could this be misconstrued some other way? Or could it be misconstrued?
I haven't even read the bylaw,
Yeah,
so I'm just
yeah.
bringing forward.
But I think we don't need to go back to the author of the documents. All we have to do is read and refer to the documents.
Correct.
And sometimes you'll ask me a question, and I'll read it, because and I'll agree with you wholeheartedly that it's either unclear. But it's just a matter of, you folks have got so much stuff on your plate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like super duper homework to know all of these things and it's, to the nth degree. So we're here to help you make those decisions and interpretations. But ultimately, you're the council, and it's up to you folks.
Thank you.
This number 12 is kind of an oxymoron.
It is.
Integrate our integrated sustainability.
Well, it's just that that's what they call it, and I knew that there was a double entendre there, but it's to integrate. The problem is that we're getting people now that are commenting about the sustainability plan, which is outside of the official plan. So I can't bring it in. I can't require a developer to adhere to another policy in another document. So if we want it in the official plan, we can bring some of those things in, not all of those things in.
You want to incorporate it into the.
Correct, right.
Our integrated
Yeah, incorporate is definitely
policies
a
into
better
the
term.
official
Yeah,
plan.
incorporate.
So
yeah,
we can
yeah.
incorporate something new into the official plan from 1999, but the actual official plan review needs to wait?
Well, it's the bottom line is, these are living documents. These are changing daily. And then when you go back out, let's say if we resolve that, if a consultant comes in and on the terms of reference, if this has been resolved, and those secondary plans as well, they're relatively current, we would ask the consultant to look at all of these other issues, focus their attention on that, and not these items that have been recently addressed by council.
Yeah.
Right. So
Anything addressed in the last 2 years, or
Right,
3 years,
sure.
or 4 years.
Right.
Skip over.
So, Mr. Chair, could I just ask,
Sure.
on the sustainability plan, that's on the website, right? You look under reports. Alex, would that be talking about net zero construction?
It is, but again, I caution you, those are massive discussions. for
No,
you
I
folks.
know, but I'm just asking
Right,
for
right.
clarification.
Right.
Would it incorporate?
Right, exactly. And
Net
building
zero.
codes, but again, our problem is a lot of those things and look, those are definitely your decisions. Those are policy decisions. You folks are the policy people. Once you tell me the policy and then the regulations that go with it, that's my job. But that's where you need to pay attention, because the issue of affordability is getting very, very monumentally of a concern in a small place like Charlottetown. If you're a young couple trying to get a house. So every time we try to adopt these new things that are very current and very trendy, not necessarily, but we have to understand the consequences of doing it, because the building permit cost goes up. It's already gone up through the new building code, which has an energy code embedded in it. That's $5,000 There's other requests to add sprinkler systems to buildings. That's pushing the costs up. I mean, if that's what we want, I'm here to do that for you folks. But it all has, it's just not a case of just saying that would be nice. There's cost to the development community, and we should be having very strong public consultation with all of the stakeholders before you folks as make new policies on that.
So, Mr. Chair, when you think of the federal system, how the federal government has worked with their provincial counterparts to establish a carbon tax, and that carbon tax is to be a designated fund, then there's a point that we have to come up to looking at our own fees. There has to be
Yeah,
a
we have
fund
to pay
to-
our part.
Yeah, and pay the part to get this
Sure.
work done.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we need to address, and I would say this is immediate, is our subdivision bylaw. So the subdivision bylaw, there's been a lot of discussion about subdivision up around the Charlottetown Mall and who's going to pay for what. In our current subdivision bylaw, it doesn't allow the city, let's say the city goes in and puts in a new road, or let's say a private developer goes in and puts in a new road, but he's only developing on one side of the property, right? So he develops, he pays for this whole road, and he gets one side of the property. The way it is now, the guy on the other side of the road gets, he hits the lottery. He doesn't pay anything. So he gets free development.
Later.
Right. We would be looking to amend the subdivision bylaw so that if it's the city puts in infrastructure or a private developer puts in infrastructure and you benefit from that infrastructure, you pay your portion as to what either we pay or a private developer paid. Just more equitable.
Yeah.
And we need to bring that in because of what's happening around the Charlottetown Mall.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Summary conviction.
Right, so that is a bylaw through the new MGA. Stratford has brought in a new bylaw dealing with summary conviction. I sent that to Peter, that sent it down to Cox and Palmer. Hopefully we can implement a bylaw so we can find people
Good.
to tidy up some of these. But again, these things all take time.
No,
right?
I know.
Right, so I'm just.
This is a lot of.
For this year?
And I'm not even, I would suggest that this isn't for this year. You folks are going to have to pare down what's achievable.
I would say,
Right.
prioritize top 5.
So then
Works.
Then the other thing too is Mr. Kelly indicated as a part of those discussions on maybe purchasing of that land up there off of Mount Edward Road. Under the new MGA, it allows us to have a capital works recovery bylaw, which is, it's different than the subdivision process, but it allows the city to recoup costs when they front end the costs of development, right? The way it is now, developers pay for everything. Councillor Tweel is very adamant on that, and he's correct to this date. But if we want to be more proactive, we can be more proactive, but we can recover our costs back. It's the same sort of system in place. The developer pays, but it's when they pay. But we need the tools and bylaws for that to happen. So that's another bylaw that working with Mr. Kelly on. So the zoning bylaw, like we almost like month after month after month, we're tweaking that bylaw. I mean, it must be frustrating for you folks, but keep in mind that every time we tweak it, it's to ensure that there is no problem with interpretation. Either David Hooley or somebody's indicated there could be a weakness in it. And again, the amount of legal tests we're getting in this town. Had an inquiry today about another reconsideration on a project. I don't know whether they're in the timeframes, and maybe we need to discuss the whole reconsideration process. That's for another day. But it's just a matter of, those things are incredibly time-consuming, reconsideration, because it's doubling. It's 2 IRACs. It's one at the city and it's one at IRAC. IRAC, in my humble opinion, is better capable to deal with that. But again, I'm here. If you folks want to keep the reconsideration process, it's up to you folks. But so then we've got regional affordable housing study implications. So the city of Charlottetown, Stratford, Cornwall, and the province have partnered on a project to get an analysis of what is the current state of the housing market in Charlottetown, where are the gaps, which part of the market that, and that stratification of housing types, which we talked about one tonight with Robert on the mini homes or the manufactured homes. Which parts are we lacking that we could provide a lot more capacity in, and which ones are saturated? And I'm hearing anecdotally that those middle of the range units, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, they're now hitting a peak in this town. It's getting harder to rent them. but that doesn't address, to the mayor's issue, the issue of affordability. That's dealing with people that are middle class, they can afford these units, $1,200 to $1,600, but where's the rest of the housing market? That study should help us out on that. So that will, when that study becomes available and we bring that to you folks, I suspect you folks will be indicating, then the next question is going to be, how can we address what that report's stating? What should the policies be so that we can correct, self-correct whatever problems that study may identify?
So when I hear you talk like that, would that not make sense to have something like that done before you look at doing a short-term rental bylaw and getting rid of that whole thing?
Short-term rental is it's an offshoot.
It's separate, I know
Right,
it is, but
right.
it's still, it's all that
Right, right.
housing piece,
And
so you
again,
can kind of look at the bigger picture.
We're hoping that put it this way, when the housing market stabilizes and we get back up to 5 or 6% vacancy, short-term rentals aren't a problem. They self-correct and they go from a negative to a positive.
But they still have to be looked at.
Oh yeah, and regulated.
Because they're then regulated,
Right.
and some STRs are not in where they should be. It's unharmonious development. We've
Correct.
talked about that before.
So we were ready to go in March of last year. We were going to go to that public meeting. I think at that time, at least I thought I had a general sense where you folks may be heading on it. There were three or four options on it. Whatever you folks want, we will certainly implement. But to your point, Councillor Yankoff, I think it does need to be regulated. I'll be asking for money in my 2021 budget to have the tools to both inspect them, to take a license, and that should be. The license every year should be paying for the expense to regulate them. That's the intent. It should be, again, net zero cost to the municipality, but we ensure that they're in the right spot, they're not fire traps, and that there's a hotline or something where you can call if you've got problems.
Various elements.
And
Can
Mr.
we
Chair,
have a meeting at some point to look at and prioritize these again?
Well, this is what I was just going to say. I was going to thank Alex for the 7,000. I
excellent.
understand the mayor has some, and Alana has some to add.
Yeah.
You have some, Julie, and I have some to add. If we could take these for a 2-week period and go through what's there. Now Alex has explained them, so we know what the
Yes.
words mean.
Right.
Add anything you need to add.
And
subtract, and then take anything that you don't think has to be done in the coming year or the foreseeable future, and then prioritize. And then we'll get together in 2 weeks' time.
Right.
Is
And
that
then
good?
the top,
Right.
your priority list.
Okay, Alana?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
perfect, thank you.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, just under the regional affordable housing study applications, I know Councillor Yankoff mentioned during the presentation of the Ham Lakes subdivision. That has been talked about in the past, a way of providing housing for new starters, new homeowners, come in low, just similar to like our house up on Avenue, it was 600 square feet.
Starter
That
house.
was our first house, and you build on that. So it's great that we can look at this study, not just for Charlottetown, Stratford, Cornwall, and with the province included. But on the summary, continue update the zoning and bylaw through various amendments. Alex, this keeps coming up about, there's some zones throughout the city that permits domestic animals or farm animals. It could be poultry.
There shouldn't be any place in the city that allows domestic animals.
Well, poultry?
No.
What about the farm out on McCurry Drive?
I
which is
keep
Jardines?
indicating, you're
Jardines.
limited to, in the zoning bylaw, it gives a definition of domestic animals, right? Dogs, cats, birds, budgies, and it gives a few fish. But those are different animals. Those are
So I'm talking farm animals.
Right. So that's how that's.
Hens and goats.
Right. So what I'm asking is that there are some properties around this city that do have poultry.
Right.
Or they have farm animals. Is there a zoning that we can tweak here under our, continue to update the zoning bylaw through various amendments?
You'll likely be pressured, that could be on the list. There's a big movement to have chickens on residential properties, and a lot of municipalities have changed their bylaws to allow that. But where did I hear just recently? It could have been could have been Fredericton or whatever. It's all fine until you bring in a rooster, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then somebody brought in a
They
rooster.
didn't know it was a rooster when they
Yeah,
bought it.
well, the neighbors know it's a rooster, and then so they had to roost the rooster off the property, and then, of course, the owners had kids, and they didn't want him to go to the pot. So it was kind of complicated to get him located, but I'm surprised you haven't been lobbied
Are
already.
we talking all poultry or just chickens? We're talking turkeys, geese?
Chickens, I mean, but it's a slippery slope, once
I
you,
think we gotta get that to the priority list first, but that's top priority, then we'll talk about what's on the,
No, but the reason I mentioned that, there is a current situation that is
Right.
on Malpeck Road in Ward 8 that keeps coming up because the Fish and Wildlife Officer is continually asking the counselor from the area, Deputy Mayor, what are you doing about this piece of property? There is poultry on it, there are other... and there
there's
are
probably
other-
a farm similar to the Jardines, though, that we've encroached on their land, do they have the non-conforming agricultural use?
No, they don't.
So I don't even think we have an agricultural zone here in the city. We have non-conforming agriculture.
That's right.
But we don't have
That's what I mean, is there
agricultural.
one in Ward 8 though? But if there's farm.
He'd have been farming forever, since prior to 1999. So that is really my list. It's not, some of them are really, I would say next month, that master plan over there by Charlottetown Mall, tons of pressure on that one. There's a few other things, the short-term rentals, that's up to you folks. And Mike, Councillor Duffy, did comment in the press that we would deal with that. So, if you just see my little
Narrative.
paragraph below, it's really critical, and when we go in, I think we can likely go in camera now, can we? There's nobody here in the building, is there?
Councillor Duffy, make a
Right.
motion.
So we'll go in camera, and I'll explain why it's so important that I get the direction from this committee.
Okay. I will, who's moving it? Councillor Yankoff, second by Councillor Mayor Brown,
Yeah.
that we move into the closed session. All those